Empowered Health, a podcast shedding light on how healing is an inside job. Keys to your inner power and total transformation. Discussing wholeness, wellness, and the effects of the mind on the physical and energetic parts of our being. A podcast to support you, moving from fear and pain into wellness and purpose. Belief, hope, connection, energetic keystones for transformation and inner power. Sacred knowledge that inspires us to look within, to find our own unique path. Empowered Health, release and rewire to become what you truly are, strong, whole, and empowered.
Welcome to the Empowered Health, Empowered Mind podcast, the keys to heart-aligned living with Dr. Jayne, ND. Today we have Wenda Blake from Eugene, Oregon. Her childhood was unique in that her parents taught her about inner knowingness as coming from being a part of source and universal oneness. Wenda has journeyed with ease and grace and gives the world her gifts of love, prayer, writing, and the healing arts. Wenda also carries a great love for Mother Earth, which she's going to share with us today, and has a new program, Listen to the Whispering Winds Inside. Welcome, Wenda.
Hi, Jayne. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, you are the perfect guest to have today. I just watched Thrive 2, and what an incredible documentary. It is talking about the science of the unified field and how sacred geometry connects us to each other, what's everything on this planet, but also within the universe within the universe. And, it talks about how some of the greatest ideas or inspirations come from being connected to this unified field. And that comes from a place of stillness. And that's something that you grew up knowing. You were actually taught that at such a young age. I think that's just incredible. Most of us have to go find it, and yeah. So can you just describe that early childhood and, what you were taught, and then we'll just go from there.
Sounds good. My early childhood, when you state it this way, that I was taught about oneness, I was more, I guess, my own inner knowingness as I was born. And I can't really tell you how old I was that I felt that, but it was more a reinforcement from my parents. My parents were a part of the teachings of the Ascended Masters, and it, of course, at the core of that teaching is that we are all connected as one, and there is no separate God, old man being in the sky somewhere, that God is within us. We are a part of God. We are part of this interconnected oneness, and it's beyond comprehension of feeling. Is that our universe, our cosmos, what is it? It's everything. But I would just call it reinforcement from my parents, in that they studied the Ascended Master teachings from the old I Am movement, and it was based around the Mount Shasta area. One thing I will share with you, It is a story from my childhood, and I can remember myself as a wee little girl, probably 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, something like that. And several years in a row, my parents would take us to Mount Shasta, where the IM organization would put on an outdoor pageant at the base of the mountain. And it was the story of the life of Jesus, but it was told from the Ascended Master teachings perspective. And it was so beautiful. And the most memorable part of that outdoor pageant, with the mountain behind the grounds below, were all the angels. I mean, people had these beautiful angel costumes on, and they were purples and pinks and yellows and whites, and the wings on these costumes were huge. And as a little child, of course, I didn't think of it as actors acting out a play. This was my real world. These were angels that came down in front of me, and I saw Jesus, and I saw Mother Mary, and I saw Joseph, as they went through the story. And I would just say this whole experience shaped my childhood and just ingrained an already knowingness about who I am and what I will grow into and align with. It was spectacular. And of course, the pageant ended with the Hallelujah chorus and Jesus ascending. And it was magnificent. And that was my knowingness of the story of Jesus, was his resurrection was his ascension back to the heart of oneness.
Mm. Yeah, and what was their perspective of what Jesus taught?
Love. Love, really, living from the heart. And it really focused on that, not the sadness, not the crucifixion. It really didn't focus on the crucifixion at all. It focused on the ascension, which was, we are all beings of light, and the angels are all with us and supporting us, and we are all together as one, raising our vibration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've, if you do meditate, you do have those moments when you feel you are all part, as you're part of the whole. It's all one, which is an amazing feeling. When I was really little, I remember sitting in church. I must have been 3 or 4 as well. And they were talking about Jesus as God. And I remember thinking, that's strange. That's a little mixed up, because I think we have God within all of us. And it's just something that I've carried with me all my life, as, as a feeling inside that is the truth of it. But it's so hard coming to this planet. There's so many messages coming from everywhere.
It is, but if you really go within, and as a child or a teenager, I never really talked to myself or thought about, meditation or going within. I just felt the warmth, the love inside of me, and always gravitated towards either other beings, other people that I could, now I call it, resonate with, but they tended to be the caring, loving people that I could talk to and share with. And that is, to me, from a very early time in my life, where that connection is coming back to oneness.
Mm-hmm. And just trusting that those you resonate with are those that you will get the right information from.
Yes. And you brought up trust, and that's interesting because I have always been a very, I call it, optimistic person. Some people might say that I'm naive or and I use the term innocence because I approach life and I approach people that I know that I'm drawn to in a very trusting way. And it's just how I move in life. I am in my heart and I flow with where my life takes me. And if something is jagged or doesn't feel right, I move on. I don't judge it. I don't, uh, try to force anything. I go where life flows, where I can be in the flow, I guess. And again, to me, it's connecting with that field of oneness.
Mm-hmm. And it's not talked about enough. It's almost taboo to talk about it. And to me, it should be something that should be taught in school, how to connect to that and be your unique,
Well,
part.
I guess one of the things that I would add is that I think with church, they teach you just simplistically that God is outside of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
He is some person or being or entity that you pray to and ask for forgiveness, or you ask for help, or whatever. Where I grew up understanding that godliness and being a creator is deep within my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that everyone has that within them. And if I had to say, what is Wenda about, I would just love for the world of humans, people, to understand that and to feel it and to go within and connect, and you're connecting to that oneness. But how beautiful it is, and how all the tools that you have within your heart are what allows you to manifest within your life exactly what you want to do.
Yeah. And so to be able to listen to that.
Yes.
I remember being quite young and just wanting to connect to that I saw it as an adventure to be able to connect to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I would try very young, but still with even having this knowing, I went through some traumatic times as a child, and I'm sure you did too.
Absolutely, I did. Yes.
So human, right? Like mine was feeling like an outcast, and I know yours was not good enough. Can you describe that? Because it's part of being human.
Yes. Yes. And even though I, talk about these concepts, and in the wisdom I've gained through all the trials and tribulations through my life, I've been able to arrive at where I'm at today. So I speak from where I'm at today. But oh gosh, growing up, even though my parents were what I would call enlightened people, they still had their challenges, and they struggled with parenting. And I was the recipient of their parenting where they were challenged, and I grew up a second child of just two children. And my my feeling or my sense going through my early childhood experiences was that I was always second in line, or I was never quite as good as my older sibling, and it was all fabricated within myself because there was no big events that happened that demonstrated my sibling was any better than me. But for some reason, as a second child, I grew up feeling that way. And it really shaped where I traversed from, in school. I was always very shy, sat back, didn't talk to people much, because I didn't feel my worthiness, I guess. And the older I got, it really was hard to come out of my shell. And one of the significant times in my life was in my early 20s. I joined an organization that some people would call a cult, I guess. But it still was all about the Ascended Master teachings. But I kind of just put my heart and soul into what I was doing, and I was literally working 12 hours a day, and I was working nights and trying to sleep during the day, and I got very, very sick. I got pneumonia, and I had to isolate, and I wasn't getting any better. I lost a bunch of weight and was really struggling to breathe, and was not taken to a hospital. I was being cared for on the property of this organization. And I remember sitting up in bed in the big church building, and I looked out, and everybody else was walking up on Easter morning to, like a festival or celebration. And I felt so, oh, poor me. And, I'm not worthy. And it was a point where if I didn't love myself, if I didn't turn around and choose to truly love myself, I was going to let go and die. Now, that was, even though I grew up knowing the love that I contained within myself and the love I had to offer the world, and truly I was challenged to value myself. So yes, Jayne, I that was a trial or tribulation that I had to go through to kind of find myself, to begin the process of loving myself. And it took many more years after that till I really attained where I'm at today, where I really, truly love myself.
Yeah, and I think that that's like the dark night of the soul, isn't it? That
Yeah.
probably everyone has to go through to come out the other side, and it can be traumatic, hard, but wow, yeah. So what? So you did come out the other side.
I did. I valued myself enough, and I got better, and I literally drove off that property and said, see you later. Don't need you anymore. This is not I'm done with this experience. I learned my lesson, and I'm moving on.
So what was that lesson? Were you giving a bit too much of yourself to something else?
Absolutely. I was, to me, the lesson was about loving myself, who I am, and the value that I bring to this world. I think it's a concept of self-love that almost everybody has, is confronted, whether they can achieve that love of self, or they, whatever time in their life they face that, and I bless people to overcome and to find the love of self.
Yeah. You're bringing back a memory of mine. I was in university at the time, and, you're curious about people that can see into the future and this kind of thing. And I remember going to someone who claimed to be able to do that quite well. But while I was there, he started to say things that made me feel less than, and started to create the seed of me needing him. And I was actually, I'm kind of proud of myself, because I stood up in the middle of it and said I didn't like what he was doing, that I know that I have this power within myself and I didn't need that. Thank you very much. And I remember marching out. You're bringing back that memory, but the moral of the story is to not give away your power to someone else, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you said something as you were describing that story that I kind of keyed off of. It's always kind of fun for me to, or has been in the past, to go talk to somebody and let them tell me about myself. But no one can tell you about yourself but you. And it's going within. And I call it, as you said, listening to the whispering winds within, that you can explore anything. You can go into your past lives. You can dream about your future, or, your imagination, starting with going inside your heart and then closing your eyes and experiencing your world, your inner truths, your passions are what takes you into love of self, love of others, what your path is, what brings you joy and excitement. So I too have gone to psychics and, explored that. And I always come back to myself and say, I'm the one who understands who I truly am.
Mm-hmm. That I'm the master of this ship,
Yes. Yeah.
And to realize that the dark night of the soul, which can come through great grief or great illness, can be a gift,
Yes.
something much, much brighter and greater, and a love of self.
Yes.
So Wenda, you've developed this program, which is, passion in the heart and this listening inside. Give us some of the keys, to someone that, wants to. I know at times I've been completely lost as to what I should do next. And the guide and the knowledge of what to do has always come from sitting in, paying attention to the inside and listening. But you also talk about dreaming your future as well. So just talk to us about a few of those things.
Well, I truly believe that our passions are what drive us to create the world that we want to experience. And passion in the heart, to me, is all about following your path, discovering, creating, and following your path. And it takes, I don't know if you want to call it time meditating or quiet time. But I think about how busy our world is today, and each one of us have certainly are either experiencing right now or have come through the time of our life where, you perhaps you get married or you go into a relationship. Perhaps there's children that you have and you raise, and in this world today, people are working. They leave their home, they leave their children, they go out, they do something for some company or somebody, and they wait for their paycheck to come so that they can then buy their groceries. It's just this vicious cycle of being outside of yourself. And you can literally get up every morning, prepare yourself, do all this, come home, feed the children, go to bed at night, and sleep. And then tomorrow you start doing this all over again. And it's my belief that we need to pause somewhere, sometime every day, and sit in a quiet place and breathe. Breathe in who we are, think about and feel what we feel inside. And maybe for some people that's a scary thing, but for me, and I would hope for people to learn to go inside and feel comfortable, to feel the love in their heart, to just pause and observe their thoughts and their feelings, and where do they feel comfortable, where do they feel uncomfortable, and experience, well, I would say quiet down to then experience who they truly are inside. And I call it inner truths. What are your guiding principles inside? What do you find when you look inside and say, who is Wenda? Who is Jayne? What do you love to do? What brings you joy? If you could do tomorrow anything that you wanted to do, what would that be? Probably wouldn't be going to work and doing your regular career job or whatever it may be. For me, right now in this moment, if I could do anything I wanted to do tomorrow, I would love to go to a barn and saddle up a beautiful black horse and go riding for the next 6 hours. I love horses, and I love to ride horses. And I bring that up, Jayne, because I know that's something we share together. But that is an example of just me going in for a moment and saying, what would I love to do? And when you can do that as a person, pause, take the time, sit down, get comfortable, close your eyes, think about what you love to do. This is where you can uncover your passions, if you haven't already. A lot of people have passions. There are people out there that love to draw. They love to, so many things. They love to paint. They love to write. They love to do all kinds of things. And I bless all those people who take time to actually put into practice what they feel in their heart and what their passion is, because that is the creative part of who we are. That is the God essence within us, is going into our heart, feeling that radiating warmth, that energy, that excitement of what our passion is. Perhaps my husband, for example, his passion is scuba diving. he ever gets the opportunity to go scuba diving and to get under the water and observe the beauty of the plants and the fish, and take pictures and videos of them, and that's his passion. So that's what I'm talking about. And I also had alluded to dreams, and I'm not necessarily talking about dreams that you fall asleep and you have weird dreams or you have beautiful dreams. I'm talking about, again, sitting down in a quiet, comfortable place, closing your eyes and imagining whatever you want to imagine. That's what I'm talking about. How creative your dreams can be, because you can dream about maybe, building an earth home and living underground, and you have a beautiful pool of water inside your earth home that when you feel like cooling off, the water is cool when you step into it. Or if you feel like being warm, you just think about that pool of water in your earth home being warm, and you step into it and it's warm. It's like, there's no limit to your imagination. But then you enjoy that imaginary world so much, and you find your passion and you bring that out. And that's when you can manifest and create those things that bring you joy and excitement. That is finding the inner truths, the world that you love and you can bring out. And then you share that with others. You connect with people. Again, bringing it back to oneness. Mm-hmm. So you go within, love yourself, find your passion, live your joy, and you're automatically, through magnetism and energy around you, you attract those that you resonate with.
Yeah, and they call it being in the flow too, don't they? Like,
yes,
there's no resistance when you're paying attention to these things.
Yes, and that's something that I share with people as I want them to listen to that inner voice, and as you say, get in the flow and just flow with what comes next, and just understand that the universe or your oneness will move you as long as you're in that you within your heart and you're doing what you love to do. I talk about it in terms of being in the flow versus contraction. Like if you feel like, I'm just not comfortable being around that person, or I'm not comfortable doing this job, or I'm not comfortable with, this particular church I go to every week, I feel it in my chest, literally. I feel contraction in my chest, and I move away from that. And I find what brings me joy in life.
Yeah, and it just feels good.
Yeah.
When I was young, I used to dream of having horses. And I couldn't choose between a red horse and a blonde horse. And I had horses all over my room and read books about them and dreamed of having them, but it didn't come into my reality until 30 years later. And I still look at my horses, and one of them is red and one is blonde. And then I have 5 more that are my girls. And I look at them in awe. And the other thing I dreamt about as a child was having a poodle. And I have 2 poodles.
Well, see, and so you experienced it. You grew up dreaming about something and you truly brought it into reality.
Yeah. And another practice I had when I was in my 20s was to do a dream card, which is similar to what you're talking about. But you know, where you put everything that you wish for the future and you imagine it happening with all your heart, and then you let it go. And sometimes I find those dream cards 10 years later and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's all happened.
Yeah. Oh, some people do vision boards.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's just a different way to describe the same thing, but I have always felt like those were very valuable tools. And I just remember, you know, as well, and with the horse love that we resonate with, I guess, Jayne, is that as a child, I loved horses. I think my mom said that was the first word that I ever said. It wasn't mom or dad, it was horse. And I loved them so much and happened to live around horses, but never had one. And an opportunity came to me as probably a middle school child. A lady across the street had a horse, and I just hung out over there, and we connected, and I said, well, I would love to ride your horse sometime, you know, or exercise your horse if you are on vacation or something. And she disappeared. Oh my gosh. Like, she said, yes, that was fine, and showed me everything. And then she disappeared. And there was no grain or no hay for this horse. And I started to save my lunch money from school, and I paid my next door neighbor to get me a bale of hay or a sack of grain for the horse. And I started taking care of that horse. And oh my gosh, it was my first major love in life, was taking care of and riding that horse. His name was Red, and he was a red horse.
Yes, and horses have such amazing lessons to teach us.
Yes, they do. They do. Later in life, I had the honor of owning a couple of different horses, but then I had children and they took priority in my life. But I now have passed that passion on to my youngest daughter. Mm-hmm. So she's definitely following my heart in terms of passion about horses.
Yes. So we're talking about dreaming things into the future, taking action on them.
Yes.
We've talked about the dark night of the soul, which can lead to something greater and more connected. And then what is left? What else is important to share, Wenda?
I would just say that I guess I'll share a vision of mine around what happens in the world when more and more people start living their passion, following their path, listening to the whispering winds within, and really being in the flow in their life of always being in their place of joy and excitement and creation and bringing forth their passions, is that, and I would say it comes from the universal oneness, which is when everyone does that, we come together. And it is about that spiral and that circle of oneness. It's the flow of Wenda. Wenda loves to garden. I love to grow vegetables. I love to cook. I love to offer food to people that they enjoy, and nourishes their body. Now, somebody else, I'll say a neighbor of mine, is a master builder. He's a general contractor. He knows everything about, and he loves to build a house and do the electrical and do, the plumbing. He knows that. He loves it. He offers that. And I do have a neighbor right next door to me. He's in his 70s, but if anybody's outside working on their house, he wants to be right there. You can tell it's a passion of his. And then I have another neighbor that has a passion for computer work, and he knows programming, and he knows how to set up networks and all of this. Now you take person after person after person that loves and actually creates in the world of passion, you'll find that it all connects together, and we have this beautiful village or community of people, and it creates this self-sustaining life. We don't need money. I don't need to be paid some piece of cloth or paper with a number on it for cooking and growing food. My next door neighbor doesn't need that because I feed him, and he, connects all of us on the internet. And then this other guy, we all kind of work together and build the house. And, it's just, you get a community of people. I live in a housing, let's see, there's probably 200 homes, maybe 150 homes in this community where I live. And no, we're not organized. We all still go outside of our homes and make money and come back and do it. But if you imagine a world full of villages or communities where people naturally are drawn to work together, we can become a world of self-sustaining communities, I guess. And everyone gets to be and do their passion.
Which would naturally contribute to the whole.
Yes, yes.
And it often does. Like, we're all so unique that our unique contribution can't be like someone else's. So it is valued.
Mm-hmm.
This would be beautiful, Wenda.
Yes.
When I watched Thrive 2, they talked about free energy and how it's been hidden from us. And there's been great inspirations on how to harness the field and the energy that surrounds us and how that's been covered up. But everything that you're talking about would lead to a really different world than what we're living in today.
Yes. Yes. I talk about it in terms of creating heaven on earth. And I have created my own, I call it bubble of heaven. Where I live it's a small piece. It's like 1/4 of an acre, but it's something that my husband and I have created together over about 25 years. And we have, beautiful trees and a garden and flower garden. And I love it. I feel so protected here. I feel the love that's given back to me from nature. Mm-hmm. I care for it, and it gives me beauty and food back. And it just feels like a bubble of heaven.
Yeah, and the more you get connected to this, the more you realize that you don't need that much. We're programmed to think we need all these things, when what you're talking about in truth is all we need.
It is. It's as simple as to me, going inside your heart and feeling what brings the glow of, and to me, it's a life that's much more simple, and it's interconnected with other loving hearts that you can share that dream with, and that you build off of each other. And honestly, it brings us right back to your opening about oneness and interconnectedness. And I would just add, I guess, simplicity of living from your heart and following your path.
Yeah. And I really think that the connection to the heart is the way out of what we're experiencing now on this planet. And we all need to just connect to our heart and know from that place of knowing.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I
And that
absolutely
connects
agree.
you to the unified field, and most things that you need to know come to you.
Yes. Yes. You just need to pause and listen and let it come to you. And it sounds so simple, and people may say, oh, well, that's easy. Yes, it's very, very easy. It just takes focus and belief that that's where the best place you could be, I guess.
Yeah.
In this world today, there's so much chaos and duality, and if your focus is out there, it's quite challenging. When you turn it within, it can be as calm and beautiful as you create it to be.
Exactly. And it is in this place of quiet and connection that you can get great inspiration. Like
Yes.
they were talking about this connection to the unified field. It's happened to me a couple times in my life, but it is incredible. Like, in your heart, 100%, this is what you should do next. And it feels so right that there is no doubt. And it's an incredible feeling.
Yes. And quite to the opposite of that, if you are considering something, and again, you feel contraction in your chest, or it feels uncomfortable, or it's not smooth,
Yeah.
then it's probably not the right decision to make. And in fact, I think everybody has paused at the moment of making a decision and said, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. And something happens, and you're like, dang, I heard that voice, but I didn't listen to it. I
Right.
did it anyway.
So many times. So we've learned to listen. And
Yes.
I do
Yes.
feel that if we all turned the TV off and just treated each other in this way, we could expand and change this planet for the better.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Yes. And most people are loving and really want to see this planet thrive. And each other.
Yes.
Wenda, I would encourage my own, I have teenagers now, and they often say to me, I don't know what I want to do in life. And, I would encourage anyone to come to you and, get some guidance on how to do this. And I might have my own girls come to you because they don't listen to their mom.
Sweet. I have two girls myself, and absolutely. They don't listen to mom, but they'll listen to somebody else.
Right? And it's such a valuable tool. I found it when I was 12, but because there wasn't the technology now that they get caught in, kids just, they're a little bit more outside themselves than they should be. So how do people find you, Wenda?
Well, I'll just give you my direct email, but I have also just created a website or a blog where I'm sharing some of these concepts, and I've actually put a couple of little exercises, suggested exercises to help people get started with some of the things I've talked about today. My email is rainbowstouch@comcast.net, and the website is rainbowstouch.wixsite.com/wins. Now, it's kind of a complicated little URL, Jayne. I know you will put it out there so people can go back to it as they re-listen or listen to this, but I'm not into Git.
Yeah, I'll put it in the description.
Okay.
It's so easy to find.
I'm just not interested in going out and finding a URL that's all prim and proper, but this is going to work for me for right now, and I invite anybody and everybody to visit and read some of the posts I've created. And there's also a contact form where they can reach out to me as well on the website.
Perfect. That's wonderful.
And I just want to say that I absolutely love to spend time listening to people sharing their thoughts and their life experiences. And I really just hope that I can then inspire others to find their joy, their excitement, and help them discover what's within them, that inner voice, and get them on the path of finding their own passion and positivity and truly living from their heart. That's my goal.
Yes, and when you share that with someone who truly wants to listen, and often it's in times of despair and when you don't know where you're going, but through sharing comes clarity. So I would encourage anyone out there that feels they would love to talk to Wenda, just go do that. Thank you so much, Wenda.
Thank you, Jayne. It was wonderful talking with you today and sharing.
And for everyone out there, thank you for listening to the Empowered Health Podcast. And remember, don't give away your power to anyone else.